in KTRE with our sports director, Ryan Smith. And Ryan, you were at A. Martin Field as the Pack hosted Tyler High, a 28-21 win for Lufkin. What'd you see?
Man, it was a great game. It was kind of like last year's game, a little bit closer than last year's game. I know it was 39-27 over at Rose Stadium, but it was a really good game. In terms of flags and laundry on the field, I think both sides will tell you that it was a lot. The time that I spent there, I think there were about 4 or 5 different plays in a row that saw a flag, and all throughout the game, especially during the broadcast in the second half, it was just constantly, you saw flag and flag and flag and flag and stuff like that. So, when it comes to a technical discipline standpoint, the door's there. But from an actual game standpoint, it was a really good game, and I think the final score kind of tells you that Tyler going up 14-0 in the first quarter, and then Lufkin fighting back to make it 14-7 at half. They tied the game up, and then Tyler comes back, puts up 21-14. Lufkin goes ahead, makes it 21-21, and then late in the fourth quarter, Lufkin able to get the job done. Saw a turnover by Tyler with about 6-ish minutes left in the fourth quarter that helped catapult Lufkin into the lead, and it stayed that way for the rest of the game. So a really good game. I think you saw a lot of good things from both sides, from both teams, heading into non-district play, next week, and especially, for Lufkin with them heading down to Barbers Hill, which, for those that don't know, was where Coach Absek was hired from this past season. He was over there at Barbers Hill last year. Well,
I expected, and we'll talk about that, but I expected a close game, and it was a touchdown, a difference maker in that. For Tyler to blow a 14-0 lead, because last week they showed all the makings of putting the pedal down, getting away from you. The brilliant running back, Kadarius McMiller. I saw some highlights of him. How would you say, how did the defense perform? I mean, when Lufkin was able, when it was 14-14, what was the Tyler defense doing at that juncture of the game, trying to keep them from scoring and it turns out surpassing them?
Yeah, like I said earlier, and this is this isn't meant to be derogatory towards either side,
sure,
but there were a lot of penalties.
Yeah.
And that definitely can be a big part with, just how these high school games are played, pushing them back 5, 10, 15 yards and having to go out and, regain momentum after having that happen. It can be difficult, but, you felt like the defense, it gave this offense every opportunity to go down and win this football game. Like I said, going up 14-0, and then you still have a lead. You're able to, it gets tied at 14 during the third quarter, go back up 21-14, and then you give up 14 straight. And, the offense, like I said, they had their opportunities. You had the ball tied 21 late in the fourth quarter. They were driving down the field, and the offense ends up fumbling. It was a high snap, gets behind the quarterback. Quarterback can't pick up the football, keeps rolling around. Then Lufkin's able to, get to the bottom of the scrum and then pick it up. So, the defense gave them the opportunities. Tyler's defense did to win the game. It was just, it was a sloppy game overall with the penalties. And ironically enough, that was the only turnover of the football game, I believe, was that fumble. So just, the defense gave the offense a chance, and at the end of the day, the lone turnover ended up killing them in the end, which is just, that's how these games go sometimes.
No matter what level, NFL, college, or high school, when you start racking up penalties, kind of takes you out of your zone of what you were there to do, because now you're like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so, as you said, an exciting game. Now we enter district play beginning next week. Well, we'll see what both teams have learned about themselves prior to district play and whatever corrections that have to be made. And that's the thing about it. You were talking about the penalties. That's correctable. You can fix that stuff. You can play exciting ball, which they did. Both teams did. But you got to figure out, how do we cut back on the penalties? Because it'll take you out of a drive and the mindset and the mental aspect of it. So, my man, thank you so much. Good job. Anything else you want to add about tonight's game or games or the season tonight at all?
No, I mean, it was just, an exciting game tonight. I know, Tyler eye ahead heading into district play, wanted to make it back to the playoffs. I know they didn't make it last year,
Yeah.
but for Lufkin, like I said, they're going down to Barbers Hill. That's where, Coach Absek was from last year, so it'll be interesting to see the emotions. When I talked to him earlier this week, it was just, kind of chill, relax. It was a coach's answer to going back to the place you were last year, going back to a place that, you've been familiar with over the past couple of years down in Barbers Hill. So it'll be really interesting to see how Lufkin kind of does in this first district game. They won the district last year, first time in a long time that they won it, went undefeated 6-0, and Barbers Hill was, obviously one of those games as well. And another quick storyline is, Javion Johnson, who's been really good for them so far this year. He was supposed to be their starting quarterback last year, didn't really play. The one game he did appear in was against Barbers Hill, played the whole first half, and he took a nasty shot trying to get into the end zone right before half ended, and we didn't see him for the rest of the season after that. So I'm curious to see how he'll react to that as well. Obviously, like you mentioned perfectly, the penalties, they're correctable, and especially with a first-year coach, with mostly a first-year coaching staff, it's definitely it's going to take time for these guys to gel together. And, you're not expecting a final product in just 4 weeks, a spring, a summer, a fall camp, and then 4 weeks into the season. You're not expecting a perfect product, and you're going to have these plays. And it's not about, whether you make these mistakes or not early in the season, it's whether you can fight through them. And Lufkin was able to do that here tonight. So, looking forward into the season, obviously in district play, curious to see how this all goes. And, once they get things sort of fine-tuned, heading into the later half of district play and heading into the postseason, potentially we'll see how things go. But really excited for especially this next week's game against Barbers Hill. I'm sure there's going to be they may not say it, but there is going to be a little bit of emotion, a little bit on their
It's going to be a huge
That's
game.
What everybody's going to be saying.
It's going to be huge.
Absolutely.
That's KTRE Sports Director Ryan Smith. Ryan, thank you, buddy.